First of all, many thanks to Dr. Sabu for giving me another opportunity to share with you a very important topic for today's citizens and more so for tomorrow's generation. A resource like water was sufficiently available when I was young. It was so easily available. And slowly it has been depleting and steadily depleting, with the result that water problems are being faced in many cities in the country. Of course, our population has gone up, urban population has gone up, and therefore the consumption is high. But our trend of consuming, that means per head, how much water you have been consuming, is also been on the rise. Now we have reached a stage, a very critical stage, that we just have enough water to manage for 1 year when the rains will come back again. I'm happy that I'm speaking to all of you during monsoon session, even though in North India, the monsoons have been very, very aggressive and is causing a lot of damage to property and loss of lives, etc. So one doesn't want monsoon to be so active and give lots of water. Excess water is also a problem. We will realize it as we discuss along. And one more issue is there. While quantity of water is definitely getting reduced, the quality of water is also progressively suffered due to pollution, contamination. All of us prefer to drink a bottle of mineral water or a water filtered and boiled at home and taken along with us when we leave our house. So there are worries on both quality as well as quantity. We're going to discuss this today. I have structured my talk in 3 parts so that somebody wants to engage in installment viewing, it is possible. The first part is what is the situation the world over as far as water availability is concerned. Second, what is Indian scenario? And third, what are the measures being launched by the government to improve the situation? With this, I will upload my PPT. So we start with, it's worrisome now at the moment, water security is concerned. Like you have security on many fronts, you've got food security, you've got agricultural security, you've got energy security. Water security is also being discussed at many levels in many fora. And I am going to present a summary of the present situation in my PPT, which is going to start. So let us look at introduction very briefly. Water is the elixir of life and the second most important resource for our survival. First, of course, is air. The major source of water is rainfall over land. I'm making a distinction here. If rain is over the sea, it doesn't help you. Rainfall over land, which of late has been showing some changes from its historical pattern. And it is attributed to global warming by scientists. It's possible for us to desalinate seawater and get domestic water, which India started in small measure in 2010. And it's got a great scope for scaling up as our coastline is long. Our monsoons, both southwest and northeast, are only for a few months in a year. So therefore, to get water, you have to catch the rain when it falls and where it falls. Store it in dams, store it in reservoirs, store it in rivers, and even recharge the ground so that we are able to meet the requirement of agriculture, industry, and of course, domestic supply to all of us, whether they are in rural India or in urban India. However, when the rains become intense, like it is today and yesterday, it causes floods, devastating crops, property is getting damaged, population is displaced, and we lose good water, which runs away to sea. After all, the river is finally going to the sea. So if you have intense rain, all that water will go down the river towards the sea. So too much water is also a water security issue. It causes damage. So we'll discuss that. And therefore, to supply water for all of us, we need to have a good, efficient supply system, well administered for our population of 136 crores. Now I am going to introduce a unit which many of you may not be familiar. As we're going to talk in huge quantities of water for entire India, I'll be referring to a unit called billion cubic meter, or BCUM. I can say BCUM. For this presentation, I will say that, so that you understand what is it about. For you to get a feel of what is this billion cubic meter, imagine a swimming pool, 1 kilometer long, 1 kilometer wide, and 1 kilometer deep. So if you can imagine a swimming pool of that size, the water contained in that is 1 BCUM. Just remember this. And that is a unit which we'll be talking about in our subsequent slides. So let's look at global level, part 1. You see this slide. 97.5% of water in the world is seawater, salty. It cannot be straight away used for agriculture or for domestic purposes. Only 2.5% of the world's resource is fresh water. And world has got lots of water. We'll not go into the details of how many BCUMs are there. But as I told you, 2.5% is 35 million BCUM. That's all we have in the world. And as I told you, some countries don't have enough, so they convert seawater into fresh water. Now, out of this fresh water of 35 million, nearly 69% is the form of ice, which is in the mountains, what's called polar cap, Antarctica, Arctica. All of them are covered with snow, with ice. So 69% of fresh water is in the form of ice, which is not accessible to you and me. And 30% is below the ground. It is stored underground. So what you are left with is only 1.2% outside. What is in dam, what is in reservoir, what is in the river as it is slowly flowing to sea, etc. So what is net available to you is only 1,20,000 BCUM. That's all is available for human consumption the world over. Is it enough? Not enough? We will see. Now you look at this graph. Globally, that is the first part of the thing. Agriculture uses 70% of the water world over. And industry uses around 22%. Balance 8% is for human consumption. But that is globally. But if you take developed countries, they use less for agriculture, more for industry, and a little more for human consumption. But when you come to developing countries like India, 82% is used for agriculture. 82% of our water, which we have with us, which is accessible to us, is for agriculture. And industry is only 10% in India. And domestic is even less. So you find there's a pattern that agriculture takes lots of water. Industry comes next. And in developed countries, industry is more than agriculture because they got a lot of industries running. And domestic use is 10% and below, whichever country you take, developed, developing, or underdeveloped, it's all in that category. So if you look at how countries have been consuming, USA is around 580 liters per day, while India is 130 liters per day for a person. That means, as per the water available in India, you can get only 130 liters on an average for all your requirements. There are some ladies in this audience, and I'm sure they will be worrying, how can you manage with 130 liters for one person? Or a family of 5 people, around 650 liters of water in a day. It's cooking is required, sanitation is required, bathing, washing clothes, all put together. That's all we have in the country. And you can say China is only getting 100 liters. We are better off than China. But that doesn't really give us the comfort. Was the water level which we have, availability of quantity is less. African countries are even worse. They're less than 50. But I want to make a second point, which I want you to understand very clearly. The first one I said, I will be using, when I'm referring to large quantities of water, what's called billion cubic meter as a unit. Now I'm saying there is something called virtual water. That means the water used for you to get vegetables in the market, or the industry to run, or for the services in the hospitals to run, all those consume water, and that is called virtual water for you. And these are not included. The water used for all this is not included in the 130 liters. So there is something called virtual water, which you consume depending on your lifestyle. We're going to look at that. Look at this graph. Now, this is what the individual gets and what is virtual water in addition. So I will go a little more into detail into virtual water. When you say per capita footprint of water, it is that 130 liters, which I told you, direct supply to your house, that is direct, and indirect is also called virtual. Both this put together is the total footprint. In America, in USA, it is around 7.8 thousand, that is 7,800 liters per day per head is the footprint. In India, it is 3,000. And many other, China is 2.9 into 1,000, and so many other countries after that, which means that we need 3,000 liters per head per day. 3,000 liters, but only 130 will come to you in the tap. Remaining 2,870 liters will be indirect, which will be used to grow your food for you, for the industries to run so that they can make items for you, and similarly for services and things like that. So we need to meet this 300 liters per head per day from whatever water is there in the dams, reservoirs, or even underground. Now, here is a very interesting statistics. Different products have different virtual water footprint. If you want to take 1 kilo of chocolate, it takes 17,000 liters to get 1 liter chocolate. I'm sorry, 1 kg chocolate. And those of you who are non-vegetarian, if you want 1 kilo of beef, it is 15,400 liters for 1 kg, because the cows are grass-fed, the grass has to grow, water is required for grass to grow, then the cows have to be looked after, they have to be cleaned, they have to be given water, all this put together. And when they are finally slaughtered, and when you take 1 kg of beef, it would have cost you 15,400 liters of water. Of course, chicken is less, around 4,300. Rice, 2,500 liters. Wheat is a little less than. And if you go down the line, you can know how much for a cup of coffee and how much for beer, milk, etc. So I've given you some examples, but I want you to look at one item which is put in the red circle. It is millet. Millet takes only 900 liters per kg. Now you're able to appreciate why the government has been insisting on many farmers should grow millet, because they will take less water from ground. Don't grow so much of rice, don't grow so much of wheat, consume millet. And millet is more nutritious anyway. So millet is being encouraged by the government by giving concessions and incentives to farmers who are growing it, so that they don't grow very, very water thirsty crops like rice and wheat. If you are a non-vegetarian, your diet will have 5,000 liters a day. I'm talking a virtual footprint. And if you're a vegetarian, it is 3,500 liters per day. So it stands to normal logic that India, which has got a majority of people as vegetarians, they have less water footprint. And countries like Western countries, which are more non-vegetarian, their footprint is wider because of their diet requires more water. This I'm talking virtual water, indirect water. So if you say, I am drinking 2 to 4 liters of water every day, you're also eating 2,800 liters in the food. For your food to come, it is almost 2,800 liters of water. So there is a important distinction here that virtual water is 1,000 times more than the water you consume in your house. In your house, you consume about 130 liters, but your food will be 2,800. Both put together with all other things, it will be around 3,000 liters a day. So just remember, virtual water is significantly much higher than the direct water which you consume for bathing, sanitation, your washing clothes, drinking water, etc. Now you look at this graph. The top line is how the water consumption has grown in the world. And the bottom line is how the population has grown. Now, world population has grown 4.5 times the last 120 years. But the water consumption has grown 9 times. Why is this disproportionate? Why is it widening out? Because for many reasons. One of them is the food habit. The food habit of world's population is consuming more and more virtual water. Apart from that, people who are staying in developed countries are consuming much more water than developing countries. And of course, the underdeveloped countries have got lots of problem in getting even 100 liters a day. So intense industrial activities in developed countries is another reason why they're consuming more water. I just want to make a mention. So if you think you're going to set up semiconductor industry in India, please be sure that lots of water will be consumed by that industry. This we have discussed in an earlier topic. So industrial consumption will go up as your economy grows. And your water available for domestics will come down because industry is taking more. So you have to balance between agriculture, industry, and requirements of the citizen. Can you meet all this in future from our rains? Because your quantity is increasing day by day. Population is also increasing. Marginally, of course, now it's increasing. But people's demands are getting bigger. Economy is getting bigger. Industry is wanting more. Food habits are wanting more water, more virtual water. So how will you manage with all this, with rains? So let's come to India's water scene, which is part 2. This is India's map. Wherever it is dark blue, there's lots of rain. And wherever there's lighter blue, there's less rain. And some places it is very, very light blue, like in Rajasthan, where the rain is less. But let's go into some details. Now I'll come into some figures, but I'll be using the unit as B.Kannan. Okay, so let's look at it. Rain is a major source of water for India. And we get 4,000 B.Kannans every year. 4,000, just remember. And 80% of this is from southwest monsoon, which is going on now in Kerala, in Bombay, West Coast, and things like that. And balance is from northeast, which will happen in October, November, December. Now, this 4,000 which you get from the rains, 53% is lost over the year, not lost immediately, over the year. It is through evaporation, through transpiration. Transpiration is the leaves of the trees and plants, they release, exhale moisture. And they exhale moisture to keep themselves cool and for them to survive. You lose water through trees and plants because they have to maintain their temperature. So half is lost. We are left with only 1,860 B.Kannan. It is estimated about 700 will run away to sea with the rivers. Should we stop them? If you don't stop them, we'll have balance only 1,150. So should we stop the rivers going to sea by blocking them, by putting some dam, etc.? So let's have a look at that aspect. If you have a river running to sea, you should not prevent it from going to sea because the river will die soon. And there are many examples of this where rivers have come to a trickle and they become dry and they die. The reason is, if rivers don't go to sea, sea will come inside into the river bed. And nothing is stopping the sea from coming inside to the river bed. And the salinity of soil will increase. The soil cannot be used for any purposes by way of allowing the mangroves to grow or wetlands to bloom. It affects the survival of prawns, marine life, birds, etc. So if you stop the river entirely, then you are causing huge problems on the estuary of the river. And absence of fresh water from the river going to sea, where the river and sea meet, that is an ideal environment for fish to breed. So it affects fish breeding also if you stop the river or you check the river flow. So runoff to sea is not a total waste, but we can reduce the runoff by some method so that we have the benefit of keeping more water in the river. At the same time, it doesn't become dry and the seawater does not come inside. So that is something for hydrologists to design systems by which they don't allow the sea to come inside. So as I told you, we are allowing the river to run to sea. We are left with only 1150 B.Kannan. Now, just remember this number 1150, because we'll be using it again and again talking about it. We have only 1150 left after getting 4,000 from rains, out of which 690 is kept in dams, reservoirs, rivers also have some water, lakes, etc. And 460 is underground. So India has only 1150 from rains net available for agriculture, industry, human consumption, all put together 1150, which is 4% of world's fresh water. And our population is 17% of world's population. So look at this arithmetic. We have only 4% of world's fresh water from rains every year, but we have to make sure world's 17% of population are given water. So this is a huge challenge for India. So let's look, what do you do with this 1150? Where do you use it? So you can look at the chart yourself for 2025. I have taken for 2023 now. It's about 670 is used for agriculture out of 1150. Some 63 for industries and 63 for domestic. Balance is saved. It is saved in dams, it's saved in reservoirs, something is saved below ground, etc. Now, 63 becomes for 136 crores for 365 days in a year comes to 130 liters per day per person. That is that mathematics. So in some places you may get more than 130, but there are many other places you will get less than 130. So this shortfall which you will experience in different parts in India is not uniform. As I told you, some will have far less than 130. Then you say there's a shortage. Some will be very close to 130, but less. Then you say it is water scarcity. And some which you don't get enough, then you say they are stressed out as far as water is concerned. So we will try and define these terms as we go along. So look at this map. Wherever it is green, there's some water problem during part of the year. Blue is water stressed. Orange is water scarcity. And red is very, very low supply of water. And you can see Kerala is in green and Tamil Nadu, huge part is in red. So there has been a water policy in 2012, which has been modified by the new ministry called Jal Ministry, which looks after water resources. They have modified it to make sure that there is uniform approach to making sure deep distress is not there. All those areas which have got red are given a little more water. Different schemes have been launched. In rural part, it's called Jal Se Nal because they don't get water in taps. So government has started a Jal Se Nal program, and in urban areas, there is something called Amrit. But that is around circular economy of water. And we will talk about it a little later. If you're familiar with circular economy, you have understood it. But if you're not understood what is circular economy, we will talk about it in a subsequent slide. And there are a lot of other measures required, which we will be discussing in the subsequent part. The last part, what is the measures to improve water availability in India? Naturally, every drop counts for us. And after hearing this mathematics of 130 liters per day, you'll realize that every drop immensely counts. First thing is, we should adopt crops which need less water. I gave one example of millet. Therefore, we should look at less of wheat, less of rice, and grow for millet, which anyway has got nutritive value. This is something which has to be looked at a little more detail, depending upon the rain is available only for 4 months in a year. So it has to be matched with the harvesting season, and this is a very serious exercise, but this needs to be considered. Second part, we should practice drip irrigation wherever it is possible. As the government has been pursuing farmers to pay more crop per drop. Israel is a great example how they turned the desert into an arid region by drip irrigation. We can also do it in the country, but we have to make sure that our farmers are encouraged to follow drip irrigation wherever it is possible. Naturally, we should reduce wastage, leakage, pilferage, etc. And Jal Ministry program is something which will bring in some improvement here, and employ technology to enhance water distribution. Now, I will digress a bit here. About 4 years back, a project was done in in Mumbai city. There was one ward which was showing, which was kept on complaining about water availability, and the residents of that ward were not getting enough water. While the city authorities said, we have been giving enough water, but I don't know why they are not getting it. They thought there is somebody pilfering it or there is some leakage, etc. So they got into a consultation with Australia, with a company in Australia, a consultant in Australia, who said, I will give you 1,000 smart meters on loan, and you can connect it up in your ward and try how this can be overcome. Because the smart meters had a modem which will transmit through the modem to the consumer as well as to the civic authority. So many liters water have been delivered to so-and-so house, because it is along with the water meter. So if there is a street which has got 100 houses, there is a smart meter at the beginning of the street on the water supply line of the civic authority. And he says, I'm giving 5,000 liters to the street. And he has measured it on his meter. But if he adds up all the meters of all the houses in that street, it is coming to only 4,000. That means 1,000 liters is not coming anywhere. It's getting lost. Where is it going? So with this project, they have been able to bifurcate the street and find out where was the underground pipe broken and why the water was getting lost. They also found some pilferage, and they have been able to overcome the problem and improve the water supply by more than 30% in that ward. So, of course, the meters were taken on higher basis. They were returned back to the consultant, but the Bombay Municipal Corporation found that if you employ smart meters, there's better monitoring, and you will be able to ensure efficiency in supply. And for those of you who are in Kerala, you know the smart meters are already being fitted for electricity now on a similar method to make sure it is efficient and pilferage is less. So smart meters in technology will be able to sort out, bring in more conservation in your water available. Now I'm going to explain this graph to you. It is sad to explain, but I have to. Whatever is on red is what the water is flowing in that river. The first red one, that is this, is Brahmaputra. And the second is Ganges. Third is Godavari. Fourth is Krishna, and so on. Of course, Kaveri comes the last. They have only taken the 9 most important rivers of India. You look at Brahmaputra and Ganga. What is in the blue is what is stored out of that water. And what is in the red is the water which flows through the river. Obviously, the water is flowing through the river. Some are getting stored, very small quantity for Brahmaputra, but rest are all going to the sea. So we are losing a lot of water, especially in big rivers like Brahmaputra and Ganges, and also Godavari to a certain extent, because they're going towards the sea. So let us see what you can do about this, what we can talk more about this in our, after, as I told you, after transpiration runoff, we got only 1150. India's dams, there are 5,200 dams in India, small and big. All put together, they can store only 257 become. Some more dams are being built, which will make another 47. So all put together, about 300 becomes only you can store in dams and reservoirs. Rivers at any point of time hold about 380 because they are still having water. So they're about 380 water. You can remove from it if you want, but rest of the water is flowing off. So if you want to store more water in the river, you can dredge the river bed so that it is deeper and it can store more water. And also, it will reduce flooding. If you don't dredge, the river bed is higher, and when there's excess rain, it will go to the sides. So to control flooding, as well as to store more water in the river, you dredge. You should dredge before monsoon. And it's a very important activity which needs to be done. Underground water recharge by rains is about 435 become, and we are extracting about 250 every year. Nearly 60% we extract water, what is stored below ground. Every year we extract and then wait for the rains to come and charge it again. So before the monsoon comes, there got only 190 become underground. And if the rain doesn't come, what happens? If the rain doesn't come next year, we got only 190 underground, and dams will have some water. Some of it would have been consumed. So we have a huge problem for the next year. So year after year, it is important India gets the rains without fail. Every year we should get the rain. If you don't get the rain, we will enter into a serious problem for drinking water. Water for agriculture, water for industries, all will get affected because we have got used to consuming so much from ground. Why are we consuming so much from ground? Can you reduce it? There are some issues. We'll talk as we go along. So the motto of water mission of the government is catch the rain wherever it falls. But of course, now it is falling too much. They're not able to catch it in Himachal Pradesh. That apart, we should do rainwater harvesting. All of you are familiar with it. Every institution should do, every house should do, every public office buildings, this, that, etc. should do. You should construct community step wells. Step wells are those are having steps till the bottom. A lot of them were very popular in our earlier Indus civilization days. They all had step wells, and the rainwater used to be collected. As you consume, you go down one more step, and then two more steps, and three more steps you go down. So huge wells are created. You don't have to draw water like you're drawing today now, but you used to go, you have to walk down the steps and fetch the water. So catch the rain, I told you. And geotag if you have created a new water body. Wherever it's possible for you to create a water body, where there is a low-lying land, it may be government land, make sure that gets filled with water so that there is some water available, and slowly it will go into the ground, which you can take later. For your information, in April 23, the government has conducted a census of water bodies in India, all over India. And they have identified there are 24 lakh water bodies in India, big and small, put together. So you can add some more based on your excitement to catch the rain and store the water. But you should geotag it and inform the local panchayat or municipality who will forward it for adding into this 2.4 lakh water body census. So we should also prevent flooding by desilting drains, just the way I told you about riverbeds. The drains also should get desilted so that you don't have floods. But floods is a big problem. Look at this map. Wherever it is red, it's flooding. So important areas are Ganges, this area, this plain, and Brahmaputra. Brahmaputra and Ganges have the worst floods in India. Godavari is also there a little bit. I'll talk more about Godavari as we go along. But around 1,600 lives we lose. 1,800 crores of crops are damaged, mostly in Ganges and Brahmaputra. So Ganges and Brahmaputra have excessive flow, but we are unable to divert it. Look at the conflicting requirement of the country. We are not able to divert Ganges and Brahmaputra for many reasons. And one of them is, when the monsoon is over, we want 2.5 to 3 meters of water in Ganges and Brahmaputra. For information, Ganges is called National Waterway 1 and Brahmaputra is called National Waterway 2. In these two are rivers which carry inland water transportation, where goods, crops, fertilizers, steel, etc. are transported from one place to another, including to Bangladesh and through Bangladesh to Northeast. So if you divert Ganges and Brahmaputra to some other tributary or some other river, then the water in Ganges and Brahmaputra will fall down and these boats cannot go. And if these boats don't go, then economy is affected. So therefore, there's a conflicting requirement between how much you can divert, how much you should allow to go through the river. So the only way is raise the embankment on the sides and drench as much as possible for these two rivers. Otherwise, inland water transportation will get affected. Apart from that, Ganges flows to Bangladesh. Brahmaputra also flows to Bangladesh. So when rivers are flowing to another country, you cannot create change of flow by building a dam, stopping the water, storing the water. It has to be agreed with other countries. And there are international agreements on how much you will check the water flow in a river which is flowing to another country. So for both Ganges and Brahmaputra, we need to have agreements with Bangladesh if you want to reduce water. More important, Brahmaputra starts from Tibet, which is under the control of China. So if Brahmaputra is coming from Tibet or China, and if China builds a dam, then what happens? Brahmaputra water will reduce. Boats will not ply during non-monsoon time. And what happens if they open dam water? Too much water will come into Brahmaputra, come to Assam and other states. So there is a national security issue here. If China builds a dam on Brahmaputra in their territory, it will affect us by way of water availability for agriculture, for inland water transportation. At the same time, if they open the water from the dam, we will have floods in India. And there is no water treaty with China yet. We have been trying to have a water treaty with China, but that is not fructified so far. So Brahmaputra is a special case. while Ganges, it flows to Bangladesh, but it starts from Himalayas, which is well within our area. So these rivers are not possible to link it with other rivers. You understood? Going to another country as well as inland water transportation. But there are some other rivers which we are interlinking now. There's a river called Betwa. In fact, Betwa is in spate as we speak now in Himachal Pradesh. It is flowing towards Madhya Pradesh. So they are interlinking a river called Ken with Betwa. And they're also linking Godavari with Krishna in Polavaram project, which you heard about it in Andhra Pradesh. And therefore, water is diverted. But it's all within India. There's no other foreign country involved. So we are able to divert the water in a suitable manner so that floods are also reduced in Godavari, floods are also reduced in Betwa, and areas which don't have water get the water. There are 15 more projects which are under study. They're very, very capital intensive. So it is being progressed at a slow pace. So we have seen about floods. Now I come to recycling of water. You know, when I bought a flat in Ernakulam, I did not know the designers had separate grey water and black water systems in the building. And I bought this in 1990s, and I'm so happy they did it that way. Whatever is coming from your kitchen, your washing machine, your bathing area is grey water. Whatever is coming from the toilet is black water. Grey water can be purified and used again. You can allow it to go to the purified and allow it to go to the ground and go down in the soil. And we can take it back for your use. But black water has to be treated to a sewage treatment plant. So in many houses, the black and grey are allowed to go through same pipe and the whole thing becomes black. So much of sewage is generated from a house, while actually part of it is black and majority is grey, which is not, many houses are not being designed this way. And you release so much of black water into the city's sewage system, and the sewage treatment plant is not able to handle naturally. There's too much flow inside this. So what should we do? We should follow the principles of circular economy. I told you about this. That means you separate grey water and black water at the origin, in the house, in the residences, in the hostels, in the hospitals. You separate it out. That means the piping has to be done in that manner in that building, and sewage has to be separate line, grey water has to be separate line. I don't know how many of the houses where you people are staying are got the separate lines, but if it is done, it's good for circular economy. Then, as I told you, purify it and use it, the grey water. In India, only 20% is used. 80% is not purified. It is allowed to be left to the river or to the drain, or it goes into some water, some pond, etc. Grey water. I'm not talking about black water. In black water, you'll be surprised. India has got only 1,000 sewage treatment plants. When I say 1,000 means 1,000 big sewage treatment plants, which can handle something like 1/10 of a city. And only 1/3 is treated. Now, I don't know whether this has happened because too many toilets have been built in the last 5-6 years. It's a possibility. I don't have the data. But the fact is, many of our sewage treatment plants are not working to full efficiency. Number one, sewage treatment plants are getting a lot of grey water along with black water. So it is overloading the sewage treatment plants. 2, and third one is many places there aren't enough sewage treatment plants. So there is a need to make sure the water is recycled and gray and black are purified or treated and reused. Black can be reused for agriculture, for landscaping, for industries, as shown in this chart. So in India, recycling is pretty low. It is somewhere around 25% only we are recycling. The rest everything is lost towards. Okay, it is not evaporating, but it is going down the sand and or the soil, but we are not able to utilize it the way we should be utilizing it efficiently. So we have been taking some help from Australia on this issue because Australia is one of the pioneers. And as I told you, there's a consultant from Australia in the Bombay board. So India has recently signed a MOU with Australia, but this was more for improving the quality of water because the water bodies which we are getting polluted because pollution is not being prevented, contamination is not being checked and prevented. Strict enforcement is required. That's all I would like to say because different state has got different levels of achievement on how they have been able to contain pollution. But India's index is at 20 out of 100, which is significantly low, or water quality. And this is averaged out over India. There may be some part in India which is having 70 or 65, but there are other parts which are as low as 15, 10. So there is a need for improving this quality index. We signed a MOU with Australia in 2021. Australia has got an index of 87 to see how we can improve this water quality in many places, especially in urban areas where intensity of population is very high. That is one part. Second, the desalination plants which we have set up. We set up in Chennai first. The second plant also came in Chennai. Then plant has come in Jamnagar, and Bombay is going to get a desalination plant soon. The quality is not very good. I can say for certain the Chennai plant desalination, which was started in 2010, I have used it for 5 years, and I have seen the quality is very, very poor. It cannot be used for purposes other than washing clothes or having a bath, but for rest of the purposes for cooking and drinking, of course, forget about it. You have to find, it's called Metro Water in Chennai. It is very, very poor quality. So we talked about many issues. Now I'm coming to a very important measure. Very important measure. I'm just giving an example. India exported 37 lakh tons of basmati in 2014. We had grown, we had excess stock, we exported it, and our GDP was showing some positive result because of this. But to grow that 37 lakh tons of basmati, we use 10 trillion liters of water. You remember, 2,500 liters is required, virtual water is required for 1 kg of rice. Calculate based on that, we have consumed 10 trillion waters. That is 10 becomes. So the whole of India, for all the citizens put together, they have only 65 becomes to drink or for use for sanitation, washing clothes, etc. 130 liters per day, if you remember. That is 65 becomes. We have exported rice and consumed 10 becomes. So, is it the correct thing to do? Export is good, but should we export water indirectly? That's the question. So let us look at it. How much food grain should we stock? India exported 170 lakh tons of rice and 20 lakh tons of wheat in last year, after keeping our buffer stock. After keeping our buffer stock, we exported this many quantities of rice and wheat. Exports went up. Economy went up. Very good. But this corresponds to 45 becomes of virtual water, which is the 2/3 the domestic supply of India in 1 year. So if you're going to engage in exporting wheat, rice, or some other food grain, it is as good as exporting water, while the country is struggling for water. So there has to be a balance of how much to produce, how much to store, how much to export. Look from the point of water. Reduce the water consumed. You go for millet, okay, that takes less water. Grow something, some other food grain which takes less water. That's one way. But quantity of water which is consumed for producing wheat and rice like this will have serious repercussions later. But farmers would want to produce more. So you have to find some other way, some other incentive, some other food grain, a mix of it matching with our monsoon time. Our monsoon time cannot change. It will be June, July, August, September, and 2 months later for Northeast. That's not going to change. So we have to balance this out. And it's a very serious issue as far as I'm concerned. We have to balance it, considering all aspects of citizens' requirement, agriculture requirement, farmers' strife if they're asked to produce less, etc. So this, I suppose, will come out in some of the law which may come a little later. So let me look at the last point, which is regarding legal issues. India's legal issue, I need to say that first is pollution. There's enough laws, the implementation is poor. I think all states, all union territories have to really make sure the pollution to water bodies is checked. And you have to do with a very, very tight implementation policy. Second, interstate agreements regarding sharing of water between, let's say, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, Kaveri River. So these are all long-drawn issues and contentious, and a lot of people suffer because it's not getting resolved. So that legal aspect should be resolved as early as possible. It is not only in this, it is also applicable to some of the issues regarding Pallavaram project, where the water sharing has to be resolved. But another interesting point, I don't know how many of you know it. As per Indian law, India's Eastment Act of 1882, that old, it is more than 140 years back this law was passed by the British those days. The landowner has got the right for water below his land. Nobody else. So if you're taking too much water through your bore well, using your bore well and taking too much water, nobody can tell you cannot take. As per law in India, the water belongs to the landowner. This actually has led, especially for agriculture, where people have been drawing too much of water. On top of it, you are giving them free electricity. So they keep the pump running to take too much of water. So water levels have been depleting. Very indiscreet use of water. Water level has gone to dangerous level. One, the legal backing is there for them to take. Second, you're giving free electricity, and therefore water is being taken. And third, you're using it for wheat and rice, which consume water. So it's a combination of all these evils, which I can call it evils or disadvantages, let's say, which is leading to depletion of water. So a new bill has been formed by the government, drafted out in 2016. It has gone to states. So far, 16 states have responded. It is expected the new ministry, which is formed in 2019, will get this bill presented in Parliament in 2024. So we have talked about conservation by citizens. We had to make sure rainwater harvesting is done by everyone. We should make sure grey and black water should be separated and recycled in the interest of circular economy. We should have control over amount of water somebody can extract from ground. Legally, we should make sure it is done. We should also make sure that floods are reduced by making sure dredging of the rivers are done. So all these actions need to be done. And you can do this only during months when it is not raining. So there is a lot of work to be done by state governments, by central government, by panchayats to make sure that we don't lose so much water to see or do extra extraction from the ground, which should be checked otherwise. So remember the figure 1150 becomes only we have, and we have to make sure we have more water with us without endangering our rivers. They should not go dry. So it has to be a very, very delicate balancing of all these factors which I have shared with you today. And the solution is not easy. You have understood the dimension of the problem. So I hope the new water bill will come with some answer, which will help authorities to implement. And it will take some years to make sure that we come out of 1150 becomes and go to a higher figure. Now, let me come to my last slide, which is on conclusions. With the present rainfall, I only told you we got 1150. That's all we have. After agriculture, industry use, we got only 5% for domestics, which is 130 liters, which is pretty low for direct. Virtual water, we are consuming 4,000 per day for food alone. We should reduce it by altering our food grain growth, production of food grains, or food habits, and we should be able to conserve more water, groundwater. As I told you, conservation, quality, pollution control, all these are required as per law. It's implementation which is actually hurting us, hurting our citizens to get more water every day because the water is polluted and you can't use it. So there has to be better implementation by the authorities. Our storage after 1 year below the ground is only 20% for next year. If rains don't come, then we have only 20% left. This year we used, but next year rain should come again to recharge. Otherwise, we'll have huge curtailment on our availability of water, almost to 1/5 of what you're getting today. So there'll be water stress, there'll be water shortage, and if these are not addressed, it'll lead to huge situations. So at the end, I'm going to show you one more slide, which is very, very important. You look at this slide, the trend which is coming. World water consumption, not consumption, water availability. It's coming down like this. Slowly, slowly it is coming down. This is from 1960s to 2018. World is slowly coming down, water availability. Red is United States. That's also coming down because lifestyle has changed. They're consuming more water. Population is also increasing a little bit. So water's availability is less. Look at India. India, this pink line, it is slowly coming down and we are across the line of water stress and we are very close to water scarcity. What this means, I will just tell you. Globally, it is coming down, I told you. World average is 5658. Now, we are at, if you don't have, we are about 1,000. If you don't have 1,700 for a particular area or a particular country, it's called water stress. There's a separate index called Falcon Mark Index. But if it goes below 1,000, we are very close to 1,000 now. You see the blue line is 1,000 and we are just above the blue line. It is water scarcity. So in many parts in India, it's water scarcity. And if you go down further, which you surely will go down if you don't correct it, then We are already at 1069, so we are slightly above water scarcity. But if it goes down further, we'll have water shortage. The term is water shortage. When you go below 1000, and then you will have water insecurity. So we should not go to water shortage and water insecurity. We are almost very close to the border of water scarcity of 1000 cubic meters, which is required. Now, this is for per capita. So one person is get 1000 cubic meters, including direct and indirect. So let us look at our inclusion, last slide. Our situation is worrisome, extremely worrisome. And when rains come, we should catch it. We should not allow floods to come, floods to happen. And if you are able to do that, we can come out of this 1000 cubic meter mark and come upwards in the years to come. I hope it happens. And many of you who are facing water shortages in your urban areas or rural areas will thank for future generations to have days when they will have more water for their living. With this, I come to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Jai Hind.